Hey, this is Richard Kaufman, the comeback coach, and you're listening to Awakened Nation with Brad Zales.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Zales, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Hey, everybody. I have a great guest on today. He's a 23-year career military veteran, Calvary Scout, and specialized in destroying enemy positions. You're already intrigued. I can tell everybody's leaning forward. In civilian life, Richard worked for 30 years for GNC, working his way up from frontline salesman to general manager. Like many veterans, Richard fell into substance abuse and is today 32 years clean and sober. God bless you for that, man. That is not easy. He's known as the comeback coach and the author of A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light. He is also the eighth most listened to podcast for veterans. Success, Your Why, Powers Your How. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Richard Kaufman.
My brother, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so blessed and honored to be hanging out with you. Thank you, Manny Wolf, brother. Thank you for the
Yep.
introduction. Love both you guys. You guys are OGs.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, we have to give a shout out to Manny Wolf. Manny's been on my show twice, and his story is mind-blowing. Raised in a cult, overcoming, basically being a drug lord on the streets, almost getting arrested and winding up in prison for life. Talk about resilience. And now he's one of the top speakers, also coaches, and he started an online academy so parents can help young people get educated today. Just a powerful person and a great friend. And as you said, an OG, original gangster.
He can
So,
and he can still rock a leather jacket like nobody.
yep, yep. I always tell him he looks like Beretta in some of his photos. If they ever brought back Beretta, they could recast him. He has that sweatshirt outfit. Uh, so I want to dig in. Let's paint the picture for my audience. You were in the military and you had a 23-year career there, and you saw some action, you did some things, but lead us up to the substance abuse, because a lot of our military veterans have gone through hell, and it doesn't seem like they get a lot of support when they get back home. So let's start there.
All right. Well, first of all, I am the worst soldier ever. So if anybody, everybody ever asks who was the worst soldier ever, I
So
I'm that I'm that guy.
So,
So
thank you, sort of, for your
yeah.
service.
So I was the kind of guy that should have belonged on Hogan's Heroes. That's the
Oh,
kind of guy I was.
got it.
Um, I well, we'll go back. I grew up in the streets of Jersey. I was a street kid, street punk. Mom was an addict. Dad left when I was 3 months old, so I was left to my devices a lot. First drink at 11, full blown alcoholic at age 13. 2 cases a night and a fifth of Sambuca at 13 years old is not very good. Thrown
Yeah.
out of school for hitting a teacher in the head with a desk. That's not good either. So it was either jail or military. And I did both. I got locked up in the military. Like I said, I was the worst soldier in the military. I actually got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict. I'm one of the only guys you'll ever meet that actually gets back in the military. Almost gets thrown out a second time, not for drinking or drugging because I quit by then, but I was still an asshole. But what happened on that Tuesday morning of 9/11 totally turned my whole life around. And I went not only from being the worst soldier to win Soldier of the Year. Um, I I won. I became a non-commissioned officer. I would have done 30 years, but I did 23. I got hurt on duty, uh, was blinded, and you can't see, you can't shoot. We don't need you. So they
Right.
medically discharged me Labor Day 2012, and that was a day that I attempted suicide. So anywhere you want to go now, we can go.
uh, what made you not commit suicide? Because I've always heard this from other people who have survived committing suicide. There was a moment, a cathartic moment of light, or there was a moment where they go, no, I can't do this. Or I had one guest on where he actually shot himself in the head and he sat up and he heard a voice in his head. He goes, get upstairs and get a paramedic. And he did. And nobody can figure out how he was able to walk up the steps because he blew out part of his brain. So, what made you stop?
My 6 month old daughter actually saved my life, and I'll tell you how. The day that they medically discharged me was Labor Day 2012. And if you're in the National Guard and you die on duty, your family gets like 500 grand, or So I figured they medically discharged me. I'm no good. I'm no good as a man. I'm not good as a soldier. I'm no good as a husband. So I'm just going to take my life, and my kids and my family will be taken care of financially. So I get in my brand new truck. I always wanted a Dodge Ram 1500. So I got one that was all pimped out. I
Mhm.
got, and from Jersey, New York, New Jersey, you get on the freeway, there's concrete pylons on both sides of the
Yeah.
highway.
Yep.
So I got on the turnpike. My plan was to hit 100 miles an hour, put on the cruise control, turn up the radio, and eventually I'm going to just go off the road, hit a pylon, and that would be a wrap. So I did that. I put it on cruise control, turned up the radio, and and shut my eyes, and I could feel the truck moving. And on the side of the road, you have those little yellow reflectors,
Yeah.
and I could feel the tires click, 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 click. So I knew it was like 3 to 5 seconds from death. But a song came on, and it was a song by George Strait. It was called "I Saw God Today," and it was about a man seeing his newborn baby for the first time in the windows of the hospital. And I remember holding my daughter. I was the first one to ever hold my daughter, that first one to ever change her diaper, first one to ever feed her. And something just broke in me. And I was like, shit, am I going to be a statistic or am I going to be a father? And I turned the wheel. Obviously, thank God there's nobody on the side of me. I pulled over and I told my wife what happened. Obviously, she was pissed off. Um, but we were going to go down the shore to hang out for Labor Day. And I told her, listen, hon, if I don't get to see a doctor on Tuesday, I'm probably going to go home and eat my gun. I said, I can't take it. I can't take being a failure because now I'm not a soldier. I don't know who Richard is. And we got me help. We got me to the VA that Tuesday morning, and I've been in therapy since. So for me, it was my 6 month old daughter. It was God through country music and my 6 month old daughter that saved my life.
I'm just blown away. You're listening to country and Western music in New Jersey. That's all I'm concerned.
And I hate country. I don't. I'm a heavy metal guy.
Yeah.
I'm a hard rock guy. I'm a Five Finger Death Punch guy.
Yeah.
Why I put on country music? I have no idea, but it was all a God thing. I believe it was God from the whole way.
I do as well because those moments, I mean, they're God winks, some people call them, uh, golden tongue wisdom, a waking dream, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes I truly believe that the Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, whatever, is speaking to us in a particular type of language. We just need to pay attention to it. And that song came on the radio just for you in that moment. And dude, God bless you for swerving back over into the lane of life. Thank you.
And that was the third time that Jesus spoke. I mean, God spoke to me and said, "Hey, Bubba, you need to change the road that you're on, or else your life is going to be over." So that was the third time that he came into my life.
Good. Yeah. Always in the background, I always say. Um, so let me ask this. So as you go through the process of therapy and you start to get some of this frustration out, life didn't turn around right away for you, but what were the steps that you started to realize gave you that clarity of vision, that ability to make your comeback, as we say?
Well, for me, I had to realize, and it's why my podcast is what it's all about now, is that I had to realize that my past, doesn't dictate my future. And people that know me, I'm the most honest guy you're ever going to meet. I'm a ninth grade dropout. I mean, I don't even have a GED, but I've read over 6,000 books. I got 18 going right now, two audiobooks. But I'm not the smartest guy in the room. But I realize that just because I don't have a formal education doesn't mean I can't be successful in life. But then I had to sit down and sit and think, uh, and I had to look back and say, well, what part did I play
Right.
in everything? Whether I because anything in my life is all my fault, and I tell everybody it's all my fault. From the drug addiction, alcoholism, homelessness, PTSD, blindness, two divorces, everything was when I realized everything is my fault. That's when I became free because that's when I realized, okay, you played a part in it. Stop blaming other people for your shit and move on. Whether you succeed or you fail, like Grant Cardone talks about in his book 10X, whether you succeed or fail, it's up to you.
Right.
I can't control the way people treat me, but I can control the way I react to the way they treat me. So that was my first step was realizing, okay, where do you start from now? How do I reinvent and reimagine my life? And I'm like, okay, I can't go any lower. I just attempted suicide. I'm 80% blind. I can't go any lower. So then I hit a lot of AA meetings. I've been to a lot of therapy and I started listening to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks.
Wow. That's powerful. And a lot of people, I don't think they look at things a certain way. It is about radically taking responsibility, radical responsibility to why your life is turning out the way it is. Very powerful, cathartic moment for you. A lot of people never make that leap, my brother. I do want to ask you this. When a man loses his job, when a man gets fired, when a man uh, goes through what you went through, we so much identify with what we do for a living that when it's gone, it's like we're gone. How did you overcome some of that? Because if you can't hold a rifle and you're blind, you're basically, how are you going to feed your family? How are you going to do these things that, stepping into that traditional role? You can't do that anymore. You almost have to reinvent everything.
And I had to because the day of the accident where I lost my vision, I was 5'9". I was 170 pounds. I was like 8% body fat. I was jacked up on supplements, walking around, no t-shirt, all jacked up. Um, I had the world by the balls at this time. I was managing a GNC. I'm working with players from the NFL, Major League Baseball, WWE. The next day, I can't even find a bathroom because I'm blind.
Wow.
I can't even find a toilet paper to wipe my own ass. So God said, "Hey, Junior, I'm going to humble you." And for me, that's when I had to say, "All right, there's a God. I'm not him, and I need help." And for me, it's still a battle because my wife, she's been with the same company 30 years. She makes double what I make right now.
Right.
So I can either say I can have an attitude and say, well, okay, my wife makes double, and she, get all aggravated, or I can say, thank you, Lord, thank
Yeah.
you that you've given me my bride. Let me support her in everything she's doing. Let me be her biggest fan, and she's my biggest fan. So for me, it's kind of like you have to realize what the blessings you have in your life and enjoy what you have and realize your job is not who you are.
Hmm.
Everybody, whether you're a veteran or first responder, football player, everybody's got a shelf life. And once you hang up that uniform, that whatever for the last time, are you that thing or are you the person? And I never knew who Sergeant Kaufman. I knew who Sergeant Kaufman was, but I never know who Richard was. and I had to reinvent and reimagine who Richard actually is. And the way I did that, when I tell everybody, I wrote my obituary,
Wow.
and now I'm trying to live up to the man in that obituary. Like if I say Richard Kaufman was a great, loving husband, father, friend, podcast host, top selling author. Now I have to become those things. So for me, I kind of put a little bit of pressure on me because you can't really, if you want to be successful, whether it's business, podcasting, you have to know what your end result is. You got to know what the end game is.
Yeah.
And that's my end game is my legacy. And that's something that when me and Gary Vaynerchuk, when we had lunch, that was one thing we really hammered on was talking about legacy.
That's incredibly powerful what you just said. You write your obituary. And I've heard that before, but how many of us really take the time out to sit down and say, what would I want people to say about me at my funeral? And since I'm mostly Irish, it's probably going to be a wake. So it's nice. They'll just put me on a table and everybody will grab a drink. And
And a big party afterwards with a steak and a potato.
yeah, you got it. And so I've always been fascinated by that because what are you leaving behind? What are you leaving the legacy for your daughter? I think that's powerful. You just said something that I point out to people who, and we all can get into this zone of complaining. I've seen homeless people in love with each other. And when you have love, it's like you can do anything. It's like you have that support, you have that wind behind your back. So God bless you for having your wife in your life and your daughter and all the things you've done. Are there any other mentors or people in your life that you can say they had my back, they supported me, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them?
Well, my new book drops right now. It's in editing, and the forward and the back cover is done by Mr. John Lee Dumas,
Nice.
and he's my one of my mentors. But I have many mentors, and some of them I've met, some of them I haven't even met. I had lunch with Gary V. I've talked to Ed Milet, people like that. TD Jakes I've had lunch with, but I've had different mentors for different things because just because you're successful in one thing, if you want to be successful in something else, find somebody that's successful in that area. Because
Right.
I just did a post on LinkedIn the other day. What good is it to own the big house, the big boat, the big car, and then you're sitting at the kitchen table alone?
Ain't
So I
that the
make sure I have
truth?
mentors for all aspects of my area, all areas of my life.
That's awesome. At least you recognize it. Your ego. You recognize very early you got to get rid of that ego.
Well, I don't
Uh,
have an ego because, like, even when we hang up from here, I got to take my dog out. She's 15 years old, 14 pounds, and I got to follow around with a plastic bag and pick up her shit. So I'm not that cool. I still got to bring in the garbage cans. So I don't have an ego.
Denzel Washington talks about this. He talked about coming home at Thanksgiving, and he gets there early, and a couple of days early, and his mother immediately is like, "Take the garbage out, go clean this, do that." He goes, "Nothing takes you out of this ego trip of being a superstar than your mom and dad, just bossing you around." And it's so true. Um, Picking up your dog's poop is probably the most humbling experience, especially if you love the little guy.
Yep. So
Um,
so for me, I believe that I think I'm meek, and the way I use the word meek is power under control. If
yeah,
I need to bring the old man off the mountain, I can do that. But I
nice.
choose not to be that guy.
Yeah.
But if I have to fight somebody, somebody's going to die and it's not going to be me. But I'd rather talk things out and be humble and be like, no, I'm good. You're right. I'm wrong. Let me go
Yep.
home.
I like what Jordan Peterson says. He says, you should be a dangerous man who has yourself under control.
Yeah.
And I believe in that wholeheartedly. My generation, I'm a boomer, and we had Joe Don Baker, and they basically said, walk tall and be
Carry
humble,
a
but
big stick.
carry a big
Yeah.
stick. You got it.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of that. Uh, wow. It's amazing. What was it like to hang out with Gary V besides all the swearing that goes on?
He was a really down to earth dude, and he actually took my well, I actually gave him my Wounded Warrior hat, and it's actually hanging up in his office. And he used to some of the older
Oh,
videos, you would see the Wounded Warrior hat.
that's
But
awesome.
he's the one that he came up with the comeback coach. He's the one that told me to make a hashtag for yourself. He's the one that told me to write a book and to start a podcast when I had no, I literally moved to New Jersey just knowing my wife and my cousin. That was it. I had
Wow.
zero Facebook friends. I was still on MySpace at this time. So I literally had no fans, no friends. I was
Wh-
starting literally from zero.
I
And
was
when he
gonna.
told me to write a book and I've started a podcast, I'm like, who's going to listen? I don't know anybody. Like, he's like, but if you put your story out there, people are going
Yeah,
to listen and need to hear it.
yeah. And I think
But
more veterans' stories need to be out there because, I have several close friends who are veterans and they've had to deal with their own PTSD, and have done so in their own ways. And if you're a veteran listening right now, God bless you and thank you for your service. Um, it's not an easy road to recovery, especially if you've seen war up close and you are carrying some of that trauma and violence within your energetic aura and your nervous system. It's not easy coming back to civilian life. It really is not. Um, so I take my hat off to you. Uh, this is interesting, and I find this fascinating because a lot of people they are like this. They don't believe their story is really that important. They don't feel that they can make a contribution to life. And when they're told to do so, I can tell you're a humble dude. You were like, come on, who's going to listen to me? I'm just a regular guy. But you've built a nice audience. And what are you? You're the eighth top listened to veterans podcast out there. I think that's a tremendous accomplishment. And all I have to say is, what was it like when you first started doing this? I know those first shows we can be hard on ourselves and they suck. But what was it like that first step into the spotlight just to get your story out?
well, right. I mean, that was an old thing I sent you. I got to get a one sheet put together. But right now, we're in the top 0.5 podcasts in the world with over 2 million downloads, and with
Wow.
guests like uh, Robert Kiyosaki, Sharon Lechter, David Meltzer, people like that. But for me, I'm still a guy that just I'm just a guy that knows a guy. So for me, I I'm still humbled by it. I'm
Yeah.
still amazed. But the first guy I ever interviewed, and I talked about this yesterday, he had both arms and both legs blown off in I think back then it was in Iraq. And as I'm doing the interview, he's sitting in a jacuzzi in Aspen because he just got done skiing with his family for the day. So I'm going, okay, you got no arms, no legs. You're skiing with the family, your family in Aspen. All I am, I just the only thing I don't have is my vision right now. I got arms, I got legs. So what's my excuse?
Right.
And that's where the whole podcast started to be like, okay, it doesn't matter where you come from or where what your situation is. It doesn't dictate your future. So that's where the whole thing started.
That's that's mind blowing because most people they have everything and they can't seem to live happily. And here's a guy who's with his family, no arms, no legs. He's enjoying life. It truly is a mindset,
But now
as they
listen
say.
to this. I got a friend. I'm going to be helping him today. His name is Aaron Hale.
What's his
He's
name again?
Aaron Hale, Hale.
Okay.
He is blind and deaf, and he just ran the Badwater 135 in the Mojave Desert and almost beat David Goggins' time.
You're kidding.
And he's blind and he's deaf. So what is my excuse that I can't be successful when people like that can say, okay, I'm blind and I'm deaf. Wait a minute, you're going to run 135 miles in the desert with no vision and no hearing? He's like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
I think that's a driving force. Sometimes it's to prove yourself. I remember the first time I saw um, blind people climbing Everest, and I thought to myself, wow, um, I think it inspires us when we're missing something in our life to get up and actually say, I'm going to accomplish something here. Do you feel that's true with you, with writing the
Yeah. Now,
book and the pub?
now, now, for instance, you've heard of John Lee Dumas, right?
Yes.
Entrepreneurs on Fire, a
Right.
million downloads a month, making over a million a month. But did you know that he was a armor tank platoon captain in Iraq,
No, I
and he
didn't know
lost
that.
and he lost the tank crew,
Wow.
and he almost committed suicide because of PTSD, depression, and anxiety.
Wow.
But nobody would never know because he doesn't talk about it. But he took his
Yeah.
pain and made purpose.
Yeah.
So for me, that's take for me is to take your mess and then make it your message.
I agree. Take your mess and make it your message. That that needs to be quoted everywhere. I love that. Let me ask you this because I come from a family of alcoholics. I've watched, people go through pain and certain things. It's a daily communion for you. Am I right to stay away from addiction, to not reach for a bottle? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just celebrated 35 years, New Year's Day. But for me, my mantra is I drink, I die. Next. To me, there's no, if I have one drink, I'm not coming back. I will not make it. I will not live. So I know that if I have one drink, it's over. It's a wrap.
Right.
So, but I also make sure that if me and my wife go out for dinner, even if I order a Diet Coke, she's tasted everything I've ever drinking outside of our home since we've been together.
Hmm.
I won't use certain mouthwashes. I won't eat if I go to families' parties, if they have cookies made with vanilla, I can't eat them because I know it has vanilla extract in it, which
Wow.
is like 40% alcohol. So I
Wow.
just make sure, listen, I got to make sure that I can't have any alcohol whatsoever. But I also don't believe just because I have a problem with it that my wife can't drink. I can look at my, I can look to my left and there's a whole refrigerator full of wine, alcohol, beer.
Right.
It's not me. I just don't drink. And for me, when you make the mindset of I don't do something, it changes everything. Like if you're a happily married man and you don't fool around on your old lady, well, then it's non-negotiable. Like if somebody's like, "Hey
It's true.
guys, we're going to go to the titty bar," well, I'm not going because I don't do that.
Right.
So I think once you have that mindset, if you don't do something, it's a big change. Like when I go out to drink, and sometimes the waiters will crack on me. "You sure you don't want to drink?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Nah, I'm allergic to alcohol." I break out in handcuffs, and then they laugh and they smile. But for me, it's just I just don't drink, and I don't even find it's. I'll even pour drinks because it's not an
Yeah.
issue for me. I know I drink, I die. Next, you know.
Smart man. Got to tell you that. And yeah, it's once you make that decision, that's it. I live in Las Vegas, and a lot of people tell me, "Well, how can you live there?" It's like, well, I have a standard, and I don't break those standards. I don't gamble, and I don't go to strip clubs. So they're like, "Well, what are you doing there?" I love to hike, and being from Pennsylvania, I love a good smorgasbord. Most of you know that as a buffet, the commoner's term.
Yeah, and I
But
got a friend. He moved out to. I served with him, and he moved out to Vegas. He doesn't drink. He doesn't party. He's happily married. He works for Pepsi. He's living a life. He
I
goes
know.
to all the shows. He goes to all the buffets. He enjoys life. He enjoys it because some of the properties aren't as expensive as they were in New Jersey. He
Oh
just
my
don't doesn't
God.
get trapped in all the vices. If you don't
It's
get trapped
true.
in the vices, you can live a great life.
Ain't that the truth, man? Yeah, I consider myself lucky. I really do. Blessed by God. I have to admit that, as are you. Uh, is there anybody else in your mentorship that you really want to give a shout out to? Because I know with someone like you really have had people come up to you and be incredibly supportive, and it helps with the work that you're doing. But is there anybody else you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I have a team because I believe uh, the only way you're going to succeed is if you're part of a team. And
Right.
I'm a big team guy. I love teams. So I'm actually listening to a great new audio book by Jocko Willink called The Dichotomy of Leadership, and he talks about team. But I have a fire team, and I call them my amigos. And it's Mark Dudek, Tammy Moses, Daniel Curry, Kurt Balish, where I know if I get on the phone, hey guys, I need help. They're either going to say, okay, here's my credit card numbers, or we're on our way, and they got my back. Where I know there's people in my own family that are in the next town over that if I say I need help, they'll tell you to go scratch. So those people, my amigos, are the most, they are my lifeblood. And of course, my wife, she actually, my wife's my best friend. She's my everything. She literally has my blind side. So whenever we go anywhere, she walks on my blind side. So those are the people that mean the most to me. And some of the people I never met until for like 6 years until we finally got together.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for your family to support you in your endeavors, hang it up. It's not going to happen. If you think they're going to buy your shit, they're not going to. If you think
Yep.
they're going to support you, they're not going to. Sometimes your strangers will support you more than your own family would. And I always say, I love The Godfather. I love The Godfathers 1 and 2. And I believe that, blood is one thing, but loyalty is something else. If you're loyal, for me, that's thicker than blood. So those are the people I want to give shout outs to.
Good. That is an awesome way to live. And a shout out to your wife, Michelle, your three
Yeah.
kids, Sean, Liam, and Linda Lee.
Yep.
Uh,
My Sean is actually going to Coastal Carolina. He's a senior. He's going to be graduating
Woohoo!
with
Awesome.
honors. My son's a freshman at East Stroudsburg University. He's crushing it. My daughter's crushing it. They got their mother's brains. So I'm grateful for that. So I live a good life. I'm truly blessed.
I feel blessed to have you on the show today. Folks, if you need a coach and his book is coming out, please reach out to Richard. Where do we get a hold of you, Richard? Do you have a website? Where should we go?
Yeah, well, I wanted to offer to your listeners and to you when we hang up. I'm going to ask for your phone number and also your mailing address and your email. Anybody that wants my book that's listening to this, send me your email. You get it for free, right to your inbox. And if you're looking for a coach, I'll sit down with you guys for an hour, whether it's Zoom, whether it's on StreamYard, whatever. You got an hour of my time for any of your listeners that just want to sit down and shoot the shit, or if they want to start a podcast, I'll sit down and teach them. No strings attached whatsoever, just because it's your show.
Take advantage of that, my friends. Where do they go for that? You'll give us
We
the
are on
link.
the we are on the first 6 pages of Google. If you just Google Vertical Momentum Podcast, we're on 35 different platforms. So if you can't find me there, then either your computer's broke or you can't spell vertical momentum.
Slow down. I can't write that fast. Um, I want to ask you a simple question. How do you stay positive every day?
Well, I wake up with gratitude and I go to bed with gratitude. And this is a hack that's changed my life. And I learned this from my friend Patrick Mudge. When I go to bed at night, I wrap my arm around my wife. I pray for my wife. I pray for her happiness, her health, and then I pray for my dog because she's right next to us. But then I think of 3 things that happened that day that bring me joy, and this is going to be one of them. This will be part of my. I'm so thankful, Lord, for you putting me on the show. So I picked 3 things that happened that day that I'm grateful for, and then
Wow.
I do my prayers, obviously. But then when I wake up in the morning, if I could see something, because at one point I was blind, if I could see something, I sit up in bed and I say, Lord, I don't know what you got planned for today. It's going to be an awesome day. So before my feet even hit the ground, I'm giving thanks and living in gratitude. So if you go to bed with gratitude and you wake up with gratitude, your whole day is going to be much better. Even if you have a rough day, if you still have that little gratitude list, I keep it in my wallet. I have a gratitude list I keep in my wallet. And I keep a coin in my wallet too. So whenever I reach down, I feel that coin and I'm like, all right, God's got a plan. So make sure you
Man.
live with gratitude. I think that's the biggest thing.
Richard Kaufman, the comeback coach. Reach out to him, my friends. He is an OG and a new friend through Manny Wolf. Yes, thank you, my brother. Um, Thank you for being on Awakened Nation, man. I really, I'm jazzed about this conversation. Thank you.
I can't wait for you to come on the show so we can actually hang out and talk on my show.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love that. Um, I'm going to ask a couple of questions now. It's our lightning round, where we get to know you a little bit better. If you're ready, you scared? You ready?
Oh, I'm always ready.
There you go. My first question is, what scares you?
That I'm not providing enough value in this world. And I harken back to what are they going to say to me at my funeral? And I want to make sure that I'm giving, even like my sponsors of my show, I lay awake at night thinking, am I providing enough value? Am I doing enough? So that scares me to think, because the average male lives 78. I'm at 55, so I got 23 years to provide as much value as I can. So
Right.
that scares me to see that I'm not living up to my potential to help other people.
I think that is a spiritual, godly way to live life. You should always be asking yourself, are you bringing value to the table? Are you helping others? Are you serving life? That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. My second question is, what are you really passionate about that we don't know you're passionate about?
Well, I mean, for me, I believe in the word focus, follow one course until successful. For me, I write down my goals every day, and my goal is to help 2 million people this year. My goal is to be on 300 podcasts and also host 300 podcasts. So that's my passion. And I take it from a guy named, somebody might have heard of him. He wore number 8 for the Los Angeles Lakers and number 24, Mr. Kobe Bryant. And somebody once asked him, he's like, how did you become great? He's like, because my coach told me to stay in my lane, but he told me to dominate that MFer. So for me, I want to stay in my lane, but I want to be the best interviewer that I can possibly be. So that's my passion, is to help 2 million people by getting other people's stories out there and become the modern day Walter Cronkite.
There you go. Wow, that is a great goal. And any way we can support you over here, let me know. Uh, I have a list of other podcasts you might enjoy being on. That is awesome, brother. I guess my third and final question is, let's get back to your funeral. When you leave this earth, what do you hope that your legacy will be?
Well, what happened, and this is the way I came up with this, even though it's going to be a little bit longer of an answer, but I apologize. But
It's fine.
uh, I had two uncles that passed away within like 2 months of each other. One was an older gentleman. He went to work. He came home. He was a family guy, great guy, never cheated on his wife. But his funeral, only the immediate family there. There was like 8 people there. And then my other uncle, my uncle passed. My uncle Tino passed, and he was like in his 50s. But he was always helping people, helping the homeless, feeding homeless, helping with the church. And when he passed, they had to have like 3 or 4 services because he made that much of an impact. So when I sat there and I'm going, which one am I going to be? And my hope is that somebody's going to pull my daughter aside and be like, hey, little girl, come here. Your father saved me from blowing my brains out. Your father helped me get sober. Your father helped put my marriage back together. So if that happens and my family gets pulled into the side and be like, you know what, your dad did this, or your dad helped me do this, your dad helped me do this, and didn't want anybody to know about it. then I think that would be the perfect legacy for me.
That's powerful. Very, very powerful, my friend. I have one thing I'm curious about as we close the show. What is one word of advice that you could give to somebody out there right now who's struggling, either with addiction or wanting to commit suicide? What is something you could let them know?
And when I close my show, and I always usually have this T-shirt on, it says, "Today I decide." And I take that from a Joel Osteen quote that we get to decide to be the victim or to be the victor. So when you wake up tomorrow, or when you woke up this morning, did you guys know that you don't have to be the same person that you were this morning when you go to bed tonight? You can change. And it only has that one decision to change. So that's my thing is today I decide, or today you guys get to decide. Do you want to be the victim or do you want to be the victor? It's up to you. It's all up to our choices. Because I know that if I'm sitting with you today, focused on you, 5 years, I'm going to be successful because I'm doing the right thing. But if I'm have the same choice of being out with the guys at the titty bar, well, guess where I'm going to be in 5 years? Because I'm going to be, if you're hanging out with 5 millionaires, you're going to be the sixth. Yeah. If you hang out with 5 guys that are getting divorced, you're going to be the sixth. So it's up to you to decide and to choose how you be a victim or the victor. And I believe if you're watching this show, you're a victor.
That's the way to close Awaken Nation, my friend. Richard, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, my friend.
I love you, brother. And guys, make sure that you leave a review. Make sure you leave a 5-star written review on the show. Make sure you share this show because this show is one of my top 3 favorite podcasts. I have this show, I have Patrick Bet-David, and then I have Ed Milet. So This is my top 3.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Richard. Hey, everybody, tune in next week. We're going to have another extraordinary guest here on Awakened Nation. Until then, bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.